Hello and good evening, CSI135, Section 400, Fall 2013 students at Anne Arundel Community College. This video is going to be your solution set for quiz number 2, and this was the second of 2 quizzes this semester. So this is your final pop quiz, and this will be your answer key for that pop quiz. This was 10% of your grade, and please note that all grades for the quiz have already been emailed out. All right, let's get into the questions. So the first questions, 1 through 5, say that you need to, or ask you to identify whether or not the IPv6 address that is listed is a valid IPv6 address. So the first address is in fact valid. This is a good IPv6 address. It's 128 bits. It's got numbers 0 through 9 and hexadecimal characters A through F. The second address is clearly not a valid IPv6 address. If you remember from last 2 weeks ago when we discussed IPv6 addresses, you can only have one set of double colons, right? And here we have 2, so this is not good. All right, the next address. The next address is invalid because of the character X. Remember, these are hexadecimal addresses, and so the only valid characters are the numbers 0 through 9 and the letters A through F, as in Frank. So the number 3 is invalid. Number 4, we take a look here. You can see again we've got 2 sets of colons. So address number 4 is invalid. You're only allowed to have one set of these colons. And then finally number 5, you can see here we've got 8 zeros with nothing in between them to separate them. So this is also an invalid address as it's written. Okay, number 6, identify whether the path names shown below are relative or absolute path names. So the first one here begins with the /, the root directory. This is an absolute path name. The second path name here does not begin with the /, so this is a relative path name. The dot, which represents the current working directory, is a relative path name. And remember D, and this was also from a previous quiz as well as a few labs, and a number of people have missed this one. Remember that this tilde is actually the absolute path name. It represents the absolute path name to your home directory, so this is an absolute path name. And according to the Sobel text, it should be treated as such. So this is absolute path name. And then finally E, the /bin, that is a relative path name. So number 7 says provide the absolute path names to the following files on the Vader system. So you'll remember from a number of labs as well as some lectures, we have the find command that we can use, and I'm going to go ahead, we'll make sure we don't get any typos here. Copy that and we'll paste it in this window. So we're looking for that file and we're going to print it when we find it, and I'm going to send all of the error messages to dev null because I'm not interested in seeing the error messages. And right away you can see that that file is in /temp /looking for something special, Raiders of the Lost Ark. So that's the absolute path name there. For ifconfig, if I were to type which ifconfig, you can see that it's not found. If I type where is ifconfig, it'll give me the answer. /sbin /ifconfig. And remember the difference between where is and which. Which is actually searching my path statement, right? It's looking in those directories there to find ifconfig, and so I'm not currently searching for /sbin, right, in my path statement, which is why when I tried to type which ifconfig, it was unable to find it. All right, traceroute. So if I type which traceroute, it's in /bin /traceroute. If I type which mksoc, that's not found. So let's go back to that find command. Very, very valuable command to have in your arsenal. And we'll look at mksoc and let's see where that's located, and it's in user sbin. So again, when I type which mksoc, it's not found because /user /sbin is not being searched. All right, finally, all the president's men. And this was not meant to be a trick question, but the file was accidentally removed with a directory. So all the president's men. And this is going to run, but it's not going to come back with anything. So everybody got credit for E, irrespective of what you answered. All right, number 8. Let me scoot 8 to the top here. So question number 8 asks, indicate whether or not the following path variable values would be able to search the current working directory. So the first one will be able to search the current working directory. If you remember from lecture, the 2 colons in the path statement with nothing in between them represents the current working directory. The next, so yes, so A is yes, that would be able to search the current working directory because you have 2 colons back to back. B does not have the 2 colons back to back. It does not have a period between the 2 colons, and it doesn't have a colon at the very end. So B would not be able to search the current working directory. C, as I just touched on, this represents the current working directory, so then yes, C will search current working directory. Take a look at D. Does not have it, and it's got the parent working directory, right, the ... So D will not search the current working directory. E has the ... at the end, and this is still valid. Yes, this will search the current working directory. It'll search it last, but nonetheless, it will search it. So E is yes. Number 9, indicate whether the following statements are true or false about links. So symbolic links that cross file system partitions are permitted on a Linux operating system. This is true. B, hard links cannot share the same inode number. This is false. Hard links, in fact, do share the same inode number. C, hard links can cross file system partitions. We know that this is false because, as B asked about the inode numbers, hard links cannot cross file system partitions due to the fact that there's no way to guarantee that the same inode number would be available. D, symbolic links always share the same inode number, and this is false. They do not always share the same inode number. And finally, E, and someone commented that they thought that this was a trick question, and this is clearly not a trick question. This was from actually one of the labs as well as part of the homework, and it says there are only 2 differences between hard links and soft or symbolic links. And this is clearly false. There are many more than 2 differences, and we've talked about some of them up here. So hard links share the same inode numbers. Symbolic links do not. Hard links cannot cross file system partitions. Soft or symbolic links can. So those are just a few of the differences between the 2. So how is TCP different from UDP? Remember from our lecture 2 weeks ago that TCP, the Transmission Control Protocol, is connection-oriented. There's a 3-way handshake. There are checksums that go back and forth, and it is reliable, right? So TCP ensures reliability, whereas UDP, there is no connection establishment. There is no conversation or setup of communications. There's simply just a sending of the packets, and UDP is best effort and is unreliable. Okay, what class are the following IP addresses? So 131 is clearly class B, and remember, the value of the first octet in an IPv4 address is the value that dictates what class the address is, irrespective of the CIDR or the CIDR notation here, right? So even though it's subnetted to a /28, this is a class B address. This would be a class A address. 209 is a class C address. 66 is a class A address, and 192 is a class C address. And this also happens to be a private address as well, whereas these other addresses are public. All right, which of the following IP addresses cannot be routed on the public internet and are considered private IPs in RFC 1918? So you could have Googled for RFC 1918, and it would have shown you that, in fact, all of these IP addresses, with the exception of D, all of those IPs, A, B, C, E, these are all private IPs. The only non-private IP, non-RFC 1918 IP is D. All right, who is the administrative contact for the harvard.edu domain? I can do a who is on harvard.edu. And here's my administrative contact. It's Jacques N. Laflamme. Number 14, who should you email bug reports to regarding the Linux utility uptime? So we'll take a look at the man page on uptime, and any bug reports would go to albert@users.sf.net. All right, number 15, let me scoot up here a little bit. I'm coming to the end, there we go. Number 15, what port do the following protocols use? So if you remember from lecture, let me end this guy here. If you were to cat the etc services file, we have all of the I'm sorry, we have all of the protocols listed here that run on the class system. In fact, let me run that again and let's pipe it to more. Okay, so here we go. And most of these are pretty close to the top. So DNS is 53 and it's under domain. You can see domain here. Telnet is 23. It's right there. You've got SSH, which is right above Telnet. It's port number 22. HTTPS and SMTP. So SMTP is going to be 25. Went right by it. Let's say 125. So SMTP is 25, and there's SMTP. And finally, we've got HTTPS, which is 443, and here it is right here, HTTPS. Okay. Number 16, which file on the Vader system controls the selection of DNS servers used for name resolution? So the selection of the DNS servers is found in the etc resolve.conf. Oops, apologize, a little typo there. etc resolve.conf. And so here are the name servers that are looked at for name resolution on the system Vader. So etc resolve.conf is your answer to 16. Number 17, who's the technical contact for the yale.edu domain? And so we'll use who is, yale.edu, and the technical contact is George Fainsilber. All right, what are the numeric permission values for the following directories and files? And these were half a point each, because we should have these down by now. So the first one is going to be 645. The second one is going to be 355. C is going to be 311. D is going to be 454. E is 774. F is 501. G is 755. H is 005. I is 601. J is 244. I apologize. So J is the right permission for the owner, so that's 244, so it's 244. And K is 015. All right. Number 19, and this was probably the toughest of all of them, but we had talked about this in class, and a number of you did get this correct. So Bob, a regular system user, is trying to run a shell script that he has just written. When Bob tries to run his shell script, he receives the following error. And so these are the commands that he runs, and he receives this error, right? Now, this is critical. He can't execute it, so this could mean that execute permission's not there. It comes back and says permission denied. We've seen that. Then he types bash test script. And remember, this is how you execute the script when it does not have the execute bit set. So if this fails and then the cat command fails, it's something other than the execute bit. So when we looked at this, we saw it's the read permission. So the correct answer for 19 and the answer that was accepted was that the file does not have read permissions for the user Bob. Because again, without read permission, these are the errors that you would get. This is not the behavior if the execute permission were not there. Because remember, when I type bash test script, as long as I can read that file, this will run that script even if execute permission is not there. So again, number 19, being specific, was that Bob does not have read permissions on the file. All right, number 20. List the IP addresses for 3 routers that are in the path between the class system Vader and the web server www.berkeley.edu. So remember the traceroute command, www.berkeley.edu, and that's the IP address for the Berkeley web server. And what's going to happen here is that we're going to get a list of the routers that are in between us. And so you could pick any 3 of these addresses, right? If you were to grab the first 3, there are the first 3. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And the IP addresses are right here. So any of these IP addresses would have been accepted. And that is the solution set for quiz number 2. All right, I have all of the grades calculated. I'll be sharing those with you, your overall grade, that is, on Wednesday evening, so you know where you sit. As of right now, out of the 1,000 points that are possible to earn for the semester, It's pretty incredible to believe that we're down to 450 points are left to be earned. That's it. So we are officially halfway through the semester in terms of points you can earn for your grade. All right. Have a great week, and I will see everybody on Wednesday, October 30th.